Okay, hey guys, good morning. I just wanted to go over a little bit of maybe what to do with a class, what are we going for with some of these assignments, kind of clarify a couple of issues that I've seen by email. So I'm going to actually share my screen and we're going to just sort of look through some stuff, and you should still be able to hear my voice as I'm sharing that. Okay, so I am in Blackboard, as you can see here, and I clicked on my content and arguing a position. That's what we're working on right now. So I'm going to open that up. And like I told you, I have it divided into two parts. Part one, you should be just about done with, but we're going to go over that anyway, just to make sure you didn't miss something. So I'm going to click on part one. I'm going to open up my instructions here. And let's just read them. Everyone probably did that. I was still kind of debating on how I really wanted the instructions to go. We are in chapter 6 of your textbook. That's called Arguing a Position. You do need to, do a lot of the reading, but it's not all that hard, and it's kind of common sense stuff. So we're going to argue a position, and it's going to be a position that has to be controversial, where there's no true clear-cut answer, and you're going to be using sources to support your idea. So there's a few assignments that we're doing. We're doing an introduction essay. We're doing some responses to different pages, and then here are the pages in the book that I'd like you to read. Okay, so, but I could see how there might be a little bit confusion about what's what. So let's keep going in our part one and see what's going on. All right, so the first thing that you guys did was the introduction essay, and I'm still grading those. A couple of people turned them in early, so they already got their grade back. For the rest of you, I should have those done today. You just upload it there, pretty easy. And then this one here is actually your PowerPoint. And I want to talk about that right now and kind of teach it to you. So let's open it up. Okay. Great, here we go. So let's talk about what are we doing here with arguing for a position. All right, so a position argument doesn't have a right answer. There's no one real truth. Now, you might say, oh, well, for my position, I know that this is the right answer. This is the way that it is. Maybe it's an extreme moral issue or it's a religious issue. You need to pick a different position, okay? Because that's just not going to work for what we're trying to do here in class, okay? Pick something different. If you are so strongly opinioned about a certain issue that it brings you to tears or it just creates like a bunch of conflict inside of you, pick something else, because that's not really what we're going for right now. We're going to focus on reason arguments, and we're going to use evidence to support us. All right, so you're going to be wanting to do these three goals. The first goal is that you need to present your issue fairly and credibly. Fairly meaning that you're willing to listen to both sides of the story. If you know that that's going to be impossible for you because you feel so strongly about this certain issue, then you need to pick a different issue. You are going to assert a clear position, and you should have been reading some of these articles, such as Should Children Need Play, Not Compete? That's a great article because she gives a position on that kids need to play because when they're competing, adults and coaches give them so much stress, both psychological and physical, that it's just not good for them. You need to also have reasonable evidence, and you need to go ahead and respond to alternative positions fairly, giving the other side a shot, but then saying why that it's not credible. Okay, so you should have read this analyzing or just the children need to play, not to compete. And you should have thought about these questions. Okay, that you should have already done. And then we have these questions here that I wanted you to answer regarding the article. And I'm pretty awful at doing bullet points and numbers, but there's essentially three questions here. The first two are numbered, and then this third one is where you're writing a paragraph. And then you're going to submit those. So I'm going to show you right now where those need to go. Okay, I'm going to go back into Blackboard here. Let me make sure I gave you guys a place to submit them, because maybe I didn't. Is it here, thinking about a position argument? No, that was about some of the reading. Let me pause this video. Let's see, because if I'm confused, you guys are confused. Let's see. Maybe it's in the other part, evaluation. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, I can't find it, so we're not going to worry about it. And hopefully you didn't stress about where does it go. I can make something for those of you who did it. That's not a problem. Let me give you a quick assignment here. Submit questions. Okay, there you go. Now you guys will have your assignment. I really thought that I did this. So if you've done it and you've already submitted it somewhere, you don't need to do it twice. I will find it and I will fix it for you. But I can't find it, so I'm concerned that maybe you won't be able to find it either. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint. So one of the things that you need to think about, especially when you're reading, is that you need to go ahead and limit your position. What does this mean? After you've read that article about children need play not to compete, you'll notice that our author limits it by saying, hey, it's only for ages 6 through 12. Imagine what it would have been like if she would have tried to write her article about all ages, about all kids. That would have been completely impossible, and she would have had so much work to do. So by saying, oh, ages 6 through 12, that limits it, that clarifies it, that defines it, and that's what you are going to need to do for when you start writing your essay. So let's talk about a review of what we need to focus on for position arguments. We're going to need to present our issue fairly and credibly. When you go back and you read that article, if you haven't already, about children need play, not compete, you're going to see how she does that. She'll give what the other side of the story says about what the other arguments are, and then she'll say how those are not true or how those are not complete because they haven't considered these other points. So, and by the way, if you're wondering what page is that on, that's on page 276 all the way over to page 279 that you need to read. You're going to give a clear position on your issue, and that's going to be in the form of your thesis statement. What is your position? If you're talking about gun control, what do you exactly mean by that? What are you going to argue? And then you need to give evidence, and we're going to go over what does that look like? How do I do evidence? What is MLA format, which hopefully you've heard of before. And then you're also going to respond to some objections. So if you read that article on page 276 to 279, you're going to see a lot of what we're talking about. So make sure you read that and you answer those questions and you submit them in Blackboard where I just gave you the link. So let's get out of this for a second. And I want to show you guys some other stuff. You've got some other little discussion boards here. You can just click on those and answer them, and you see the due dates. We're going to keep those due dates as they are. If something comes up later this week and there's like a big snowstorm tomorrow and you guys cancel class, well then I'll make some adjustments. Otherwise, let's just keep them as we are for right now. So here we are. I'm going to click on part 2, writing. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to start writing my essay. What do I do? Okay, let's click on the instructions first. Okay, so here's your reading list. The pages that I want you to read, and I want you to check the module for discussion board links and just follow the instructions there. And then we're going to check the essay assignment. It will probably take us about 2 weeks to start with a draft, do peer review, and then a final copy, the final deal. don't panic that I have the rough draft due in just a couple of days. It's because I really need to see how you're writing. I have no idea how any of you are writing right now. And so I don't know if we're going to need extra time or not. So I would rather find that out now, talk about anything, reteach anything that we might need to know, instead of giving you all this time and not being able to see your writing until the actual end. Okay, so that's why we're doing that. It's really designed to help you. So we're going to go back here to part 2, writing. Okay, and so let's talk about the essay assignment. And I don't know if I gave you guys the wrong. Okay, yeah. Here we go. We're going to take one side of any argument within reason and appropriate for discussion / debate. There's going to be some things that are going to be so morally just off that we're not even going to discuss that, right? But other things we can discuss. And what I would mean by something that's not appropriate for discussion is that, I don't know, something so awful such as arguing in favor of genocide, or arguing in favor of, body female mutilation, or arguing in favor of the destruction of all rights for certain groups. Okay, those are just things that are so far beyond acceptable. We're not going to go there. So, but anything else you can do. So I am really open to what you want to write about. I never, ever, ever tell you have to write about this certain idea. It's up to you. So you're going to need to really read the chapter to try to find some ideas and to get some things that will keep your brain going. Okay, keep you going. And there's lots of little options for you throughout the entire chapter you can consider. But you're going to want to follow these things, like clearly state your position. I need to know what you're arguing for. I need to know what you're going to be writing about. It shouldn't be, please don't apologize for your position either. I need you to act like the boss. Okay, like you know exactly what you're talking about when you clearly state your position. The next one is consider a specific audience. Who are you writing this paper for? You're probably thinking right now, well, I'm writing this paper for you because you're going to read it. Yes and no. All right, if you're writing a paper about gun control and how automatic rifles should be banned in the state of Iowa, well, then you're writing that for a person who's interested in guns or interested in community safety. You're not just writing it for me. If you're writing a paper that says that students shouldn't have homework, you're probably writing that paper for principals, school administrators, people like that, okay? You are going to need to get at least 3 sources and format in MLA, okay? That shouldn't be anything super new, but we are going to cover it probably next week just to make sure we're all doing it right. Consider what the other concerns and questions are of the reader and then write to address those. It's kind of like when you want something really bad and you try to talk to your parents about that, you probably already imagine what they're going to say no to. So if you want to ask your parents if you can stay out until, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're probably going to say, well, what about driving home that late? That's pretty dangerous. And you might say, well, I know you're worried about me driving home pretty late, but I will make sure that I always come home on time and use my lights and use my seatbelt and make sure that I'm not texting and driving. You're just trying to anticipate what the other person is going to say and then go ahead and talk about that. So we want to make sure that our paper is 3 to 4 pages. That doesn't include the works cited page. It is double spaced. It's 12-point font. It's like all of your basics. You're going to have a heading in the upper left corner, and you're going to submit it in Talon by the due date. Now, I like to divide our papers up into several different parts. And the first part that we're going to do is the rough draft. And like I told you, this is just to see how you write. What do we need help on? What are we doing here? So the first thing here is the rough draft, and that's not due until this Friday. And I'm going to give you till midnight to work on that. And you're going to submit it right there. And then after that, next week, we will work on the peer review and we will work on the final essay. But for now, you just need to be writing. So I'm going to go ahead and look in here at this position PowerPoint too, and we're going to talk about it. All right, let's open that up. Okay, so what are some things that we need to have and we need to think about when we're writing on paper? The first thing that I want you to think about is that a writer uses the title of the essay to help the reader understand what it's going to be about. You don't need to give away everything in your essay, but you do need to let me know, hey, what is this? Please don't call your essay my position essay or essay number 1 or first essay or college essay. That doesn't, because that just doesn't tell me anything. Instead, if you will open your book and go over to page, we can talk about our first essay that we read on page 276. Children need to play, not compete. Oh, well, that tells you exactly what this article is about. And that's cool. And then if you look at the next essay that you're going to be reading for this week, it's called, go over to page, I've got my book out too. Go over to page 288 in your book, 288. It's called Boys Here, Girls There. Sure, if equality is the goal. So what is this going to be about? Maybe about separating boys and girls, maybe about separating them at school. It kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to be reading. It doesn't just say my position essay, because that's meaningless. Also, make sure that you are defining the issue. Limit it to exactly what you're going to argue or what you're going to talk about. If you know that you're only going to talk about maybe the importance of serving healthy lunches in northern Iowa, then that's what you need to write. Don't try to write about the entire United States. You can't do that in 3 to 4 pages. Also, your essay must have a thesis, and this should not be anything new, but if it is, if I mentioned anything so far that you really and truly have never been taught before, please send me an email so I can make sure that I cover that. In a couple of days, I can make you a new video. So your essay must have a thesis, and a thesis is simply the main sentence that gives me the argument of what your whole entire essay is going to try to prove. It's going to let me know where you stand on the issue. There's not going to be any confusion about what you're believing and what you're trying to prove. So what else do I need? I've got to have evidence. And so what you should be doing right now is you should already start researching. Please don't use any Facebook posts, blogs, tweets, Snapchats, etc. as actual evidence, because it's not. And you can use news articles, maybe that come from the New York Times or the Washington Post or your local newspaper. Those are okay, but we're not going to use social media as a source. Okay. So what do I mean by anticipating the other side of the story? Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Many of you probably watch the presidential debates. I'm going to be totally honest that I really didn't the last couple of times, but I have in the past, and I know what debates are like. One person says something and you counter that with your argument or your position about why they're wrong, about why they're incorrect, or why they haven't seen the whole picture. So think about it. And maybe you've wanted something really bad from your parents or a friend or someone, and you actually really take the time to think about, hey, they're going to say no because of this. And I know they're going to say no. Now, what could I say in response to that? Before they even have a chance to say no, I can already address that issue. So imagine this, all right? Right now, my son, he's only 3 years old. But one day I know he's going to be a teenager and he's going to want to drive. So he might be thinking, okay, Mom, I'm ready to drive because I'm 16 and I have my learner's permit, and I know you're worried about my grades, but I will only use the car to go to the library and go to my study groups, and then I'll be back home by 7:30 every night. And I know you're concerned about gas, so I will use my allowance to put gas in the car and make sure that it's always filled up when I bring it back to you. And I'll be like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, I was concerned about your grades and about gas money, but since you've already kind of answered that for me, yeah, go ahead. You can use the car. That sounds great. So you're kind of going to do something like that when you're writing. You have to anticipate what the other side is going to say and then counter that already in your writing. So why do I have to give anticipation? All right, look, number one, enhances your credibility. You look like a boss when you can defend yourself from the other side right away. Just like in my son, in 13 years from now, if he can go ahead and address the issue of his grades and gas money and safety and stuff like that before I have to nag him about it, then I'll probably go ahead and let him use the car. It also makes your argument really strong. Just think about that with my son. I have nothing left to say to him except hand him the car keys because he's already mentioned about gas money and about keeping his grades up. Okay? And it also lets me think, oh, you know what? That's great. Yeah. Number 3, we have common concerns. We were both thinking about the same things. He was concerned about his grades, so he went ahead and solved that. And I was concerned about his grades, and he solved that for me. So we're good. All right, so you are going to want to analyze this, boys here, girls there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and make a new one for you and make sure you have everything you need in Blackboard to submit. And if you will go ahead and work on your essay and read this, this new article, I will get back to you with a new video on where I want you to submit everything and show you that, okay?